I'm feeling good today. How about you guys?
Did you get rest, John? Is this arrested, John Goodman?
I'm still not completely myself. I was in bed for 10 hours last night. I didn't sleep for 10 hours, but I was in bed for 10 hours. And I'm still not myself, but I did have a date night with Allison last night, and we rented an ATV for our last week and a half here in Nicaragua. And so Allison and I took the ATV and just whipped around to some private beach and took in the end of sunset and stuff there. So that was fun. But then I came home at 7:30 and just basically fell down into bed. So crazy night with the Goodmans. All right.
Yeah.
Today I'm really excited to talk over the final chapter of the Obvious Choice book. I feel like this has been a journey, guys.
It's exciting.
You're acting surprised, but I told you that I was going to do this before we started recording, man.
You're not supposed to ruin it, John.
You don't say.
Other times
you'll
be like, "Do you know about the Blakey Blake principle?" And I was like, "Yeah, we talked about it." You're like, "You're not supposed to do that on the podcast." Then I do the opposite, and you criticize me for that too, John. I can't win. You didn't compliment my picture today. You said I was fuzzy 2 days in a row, but you don't say you're clear. You're supposed to praise in public, John, and criticize in private. You've got the complete opposite way. I don't know how you stayed in business. I'm interested to read this book to get your secrets. Because you're a horrible man, John Goodman. Just a horrible
your
man.
Hat. I like your hat. And
too late.
Your biceps seem more
That's
defined
enough.
lately.
Don't talk about my biceps, John. I'm deeply uncomfortable. I'm going to drink my shitty tea to pretend like I didn't hear that. Still shitty.
Some honey. Yeah, you should put some honey in that. It tastes better.
Put some honey in it. It's true.
This is called Whales and Minnows. Whales and Minnows is my central life philosophy, my central business philosophy. It's the final chapter of this book. It is, if there's one place where people screw things up, if there's one area where I think that people can make a change to their overall business structure that will have a meaningful change to both the quality of their life, the amount of profit they make, and how easy business seems, it's to take a whales and minnows approach. And if there's one approach that I so rarely see, it's the whales and minnows approach. And so I'm excited to talk to you about this. Here's what it comes down to. Free isn't a business. It's a charity. Expensive is often short-sighted. But together, they're potent. You need to sell to the whales in order to serve the minnows. The Pulitzer Prize-winning author Hernan Diaz, who wrote, "Profit and common good are but two sides of the same coin." It's okay to admit that you want to make a lot of money. So let's go back to COVID-19. And this was a really fucking weird time for our business, wasn't it, Em?
Yes, that was the upside down for sure.
All eyes were on me when COVID-19 crushed the fitness industry. It was a really weird point that we got to. You probably know this, but if you don't know this, that's totally cool. I'd written the literal textbook for online fitness 5 years earlier. And it was part of what's called the Online Trainer Academy, which still exists. If you go to onlinetrainer.com/academy, you can learn about it. Even though we had about 10,000 alumni by 2021, most of the industry was still unaware or uninterested in remote coaching. And seemingly overnight, as a result of COVID-19, everybody was forced online and needed what I had. It was a really weird time. I don't know if we'll ever talk about just how weird it was. I mean, I was on the phone night and day with almost every major gym chain and certification body, basically within a week of all of the shutdowns happening worldwide. During the daytime with the United States, with Canada, at night with Australia, with Singapore, Hong Kong. It was wild, man. And so the Online Trainer Academy at that point was priced at $1,999, and it was reassuringly expensive. but my colleagues were struggling. And so in response to the pandemic, I decided to be a nice guy, and we cut costs and we dropped the price to $799, which was a really big mistake. Because as I learned, getting a cheap customer is just as hard as getting a customer who pays you a lot. And when you consider the value cheap customers bring to your business, you'll find that they tend to drain the bottom line and ruin the experience of others. I developed what I called the "I just want to help people with low prices" sinking spiral. It's what happens when you sell your product or service too cheap. Basically, if you picture a spiral, I drew it out for the book, but if you picture the spiral, when you don't have enough money to offer a high quality product and provide great customer service, you end up with dissatisfied people who don't stay or refer. You're then forced to scramble for new customers by offering further deals and discounts, and the process spirals downwards, eventually putting you out of business. Tesla Motors began by selling a high-priced roadster. Elon Musk knew that he couldn't compete early on with the incumbent automakers' operational efficiency. So what he did was, early on, he made his first car cool, different, and expensive. Then he sold it to a few whales. And over time, the company introduced lower-cost models. You go premium first because it's much easier to go down market than up market. When you're newer, you lack the necessary scale to make a product that's both good and inexpensive. So choose. But never forget that you're ultimately judged on whether you've actually solved a person's problem. It's okay to tell people to go elsewhere. I forgot that lesson. Trying to be a nice guy and reducing the price so that everybody could afford my thing almost bankrupted my company. More profit and less customers forced me to cut corners. Our customer service, which was previously remarkable, couldn't keep up. The content budget got slashed. This podcast got stopped. And new product innovation got paused. The reaction to low lead flow is often to further reduce pricing. Counterintuitively, if you're not getting enough customers, the correct response is almost always to charge more and sell to less people. So the way that I actually turned the company around was by raising the price of the Online Trainer Academy by 50%. Then in 2023, I raised it another 50%. And the program now costs $15.99 again. At the same time, I renewed the emphasis on a higher tier service. And this service was for the top 0.01% of our industry, called the Online Trainer Mentorship. And we began heavily investing into free content for the 99.99% of people who couldn't yet afford to work with us. Raising prices turns sinking spirals into functional flywheels. So the whales and minnow functional flywheel says that a higher profit leads to better customer service, better product, and ultimately more success for your whales. At the same time, it enables you to nurture your minnows, helping and growing them so that when they grow into whales, when they're ready to buy something like your thing, you're, Ren, the obvious choice.
Well done, John.
Thank you. Thank you. I'm just going to let that one sink in while I take a sip of water. My mouth is very parched today. I don't know why. Probably because I haven't spoken to another human being yet.
Well, I can't tell you how much I enjoy sinking spiral to functional flywheel.
Good,
It's
right?
gonna be that's gonna be my new product name. That's the name of my new 12-week program, Sinking Spiral to Functional Flywheel. Everybody gets a pinwheel in the mail for free.
Take that sip of that unhoneyed tea.
Still bad.
Still bad. Missing mil de abajo.
What?
It's my terrible Spanish accent.
Oh, I know what happened, but I felt racist. I don't know. Can't make it out. With the black bones in me during Black History Month, feel like it was racist in nature. I don't know, John.
Oh, yeah. Happy Black History Month. I'm so, I don't know what you say. Happy Black History Month?
It's Mary, John. Black people know it's Mary. It's Mary Black History Month.
Congratulations.
Gosh.
I hope you have
low tolerance much. John.
I hope you have a meaningful 28 or 29 days, depending on whether it's a leap year. I'm not sure what you said.
Whatever, Mein Kampf.
When they were
Keep it moving.
handing out months, do you think that the blacks
I'm sorry, what, Führer?
when when they were handing out months, do you think that the blacks were upset that they got the shortest one?
Yes, probably. It's a thing. And to this day, John, that hate has we've not subsided in our anger over that. But we get a leap year this year, so we get 29 days.
Well, there you go.
I'm gonna use the
So
extra
it's like,
one.
so how many years has Black
media.
History Month been around? Is it one of those things where it's been around for like 30 years, but it's actually like 5 years old?
No, it hadn't been around that long. I think Carter G. Woodson started it, and I think that was the early 1900s. Yeah.
Okay.
That's what I think. Oh, I might have misquoted that. Not Carter G. Woodson. I think that was a president. I messed it up. And anyway, I need to go study for Black History Month.
Sounded like a real person's name.
Yeah, that is, but that's not the right person. Calvin Coolidge. I don't know. Keep moving, John. I'm embarrassing myself in front of the black people.
But I digress.
Jesus.
I mean, Pride Month got 31 days. I'm just saying.
I mean, they're bigger already. Don't get me started.
The worth of money is not in its possession, but it's in its use. That's Robert Greene in the 48 Laws of Power. So whales and minnows, the way that I look at it is that it's an approach to business that turns "why should I buy from you" into "can I please buy from you," while also making it easy for you to help those who never buy, which I think is pretty ideal. But whales and minnows is also a life philosophy. You say yes or you say no. You show up or you don't show up. You decide to do the thing or you don't do the thing. Successful people make binary decisions and accept the trade-offs. Unsuccessful people muck about in the middle, afraid to fully commit to a few things, instead opting for the perceived safety of many. The weaker part of ourselves cannot say no to substandard opportunities. Ryan Holiday wrote that perhaps deep down we know that if we agree to their thing, then we don't have to answer for the poor performance of our thing when it's time for a full accounting. It allows us to say, well, if only I weren't so busy. Holiday continued in this piece that I read. He said, it's not rude to say no to one person if it means you can say yes to more. When you remember when I brought up this letter from President Truman, who once wrote in response to a Mr. Taylor in 1954, he wrote a letter that said, your question will be answered in the book which I am getting ready to publish as soon as possible. It's poetry, dude. Because trying to be everything to everybody is a great way to not be anything to anybody. Here's a personal example. My wife and I went to a John Butler Trio concert. His rendition of Ocean damn near took us to a different planet. It's a beautiful song. After it was done, I looked at Allison and I said, let's go home. Because we were all in, and then we weren't. So we left and we were in bed by 10:30 p.m. We had a good night's sleep and were fresh for our kids the next morning. There's one more example. My family lives abroad every winter because Canada's cold and I'm a wuss. But it's always an adventure. And I want to be present for it. Like, it's cool as shit. But this also means not feeling like I need to capture every damn second with my phone. So we hire a local photographer for one afternoon in each location. Because 20 great photos are better than thousands of bad ones. It's whales and minnows. We can't do it all. We can't even do very much. So I decided to put this as the final chapter because it's about increasing your perceived value. It's about having fewer customers, charging a lot, using your time and money to help more people. But the philosophy goes deeper than that. It's also about the binary decision most people, including me, don't make often enough, which is show up or don't show up. Both are fine, but the middle isn't. Amber, I'm going to talk about your sexy pictures for a minute. Not your sexy pictures. The story you told me about sexy pictures. We just had an HR complaint. I ignored it.
Yeah, thank you for clarifying.
I'll tell you, man.
The HR button's like a NASDAQ stock ticker. We get an HR complaint every 1.6 seconds.
Tim has just gotten used to getting ignored. Tim's our HR guy. He just got used to getting ignored. I fired him 2 years ago. He still just hangs around. We've never had an HR guy.
We keep him entertained at least.
Yeah, well, we've never had an HR person. Anyway, I want to tell you about Bill. Bill's a former Marine turned boudoir photographer. He's got long red hair. Sydney works at the front desk of a hotel. She makes $17 an hour. She has 3 kids and keeps her hair in a perma ponytail. Now, Sydney booked a $350 photo shoot with Bill, and after it was done, she bought multiple upgrades, including a 10-image photo book for $699, one black and white print for $599, and a $300 storage fee in case she wants to buy more photos later. When you add it all up, altogether, she paid close to $2,000 for a few sexy pictures, which sounds like a crazy purchase for somebody who can barely afford their rent. And it is crazy if all that Sydney was buying were pictures. But it's totally reasonable when you consider what she actually bought. So here's the review that Sydney left on Bill's services. I think this was a Google review, right, Amber? Somewhere. Might have been a Facebook.
It was a Facebook, yeah.
It was a Facebook review. She said, I looked at myself completely different. Just like every one of you, I'm very critical of my body. Even after losing 20 pounds last year, it's not perfect, but no one is. I believe my first words were, that's not me. I got to see myself in a completely different light. I realized I am beautiful and any man is lucky to have me. I felt empowered and ready to conquer the world. I loved myself again. That last line says it all, doesn't it? And Bill did this. Bill made her feel this way. Bill helped Sydney discover who she really was. His photo sessions include hair and makeup. You're welcome to bring your girlfriends. There's mimosas, chocolate-covered strawberries, and empowering music. Bill's wife hypes you up. And Bill, who I remind you is a former Marine with long red hair, puts you at ease by demonstrating the moves himself. Picture that. Or don't. Because when I was writing this, I pictured it, and I suggest you don't picture it.
He's good at it, though.
Let's move on. You're not selling your thing. You're selling what somebody will become as a result of your thing. And the more profit you make, the more resources you have to deliver on your promise. There's this parable about a master locksmith. And as it goes, he'd go to a house with a jammed lock, and in 2 minutes, he'd pop off the lock and install a new one. His customers were always happy until they saw a bill. They'd say, $250? What? For what? It only took you a few minutes. You did it too quickly. How do I know that this new one is secure? They'd say. And on one hand, the customer's right. It was done quickly. On the other hand, the locksmith trained for decades to master his craft. You're not paying him for his time. You're paying him for his years of experience and expertise. Now, most people who share this parable stop there as a celebration of expertise or to voice frustration about a lack of appreciation of that expertise. But it doesn't stop there, does it? Because what people should value isn't what they do value. Complaining about a problem, even if the problem is unfair and unjust, doesn't solve the problem and is therefore a waste of energy. What the locksmith needs to do is pretend to struggle with the lock for 29 minutes and 30 seconds before popping it off. He could sweat. He could ask for a glass of water and break a tool or two. And people would trust his work more. He'd be able to charge twice as much without a fuss. Glad I called a real expert. It must have been really jammed, the homeowner would think. In 2016, the Australian Competition and Consumer Commission fined this company called Reckitt Beckniser $6 million for misleading claims about its Nurofen pain products. Now, here's what happened. Nurofen sold multiple pills tailored to different types of pain. Back pain, period pain, migraine pain. The prosecutor's argument was that the active ingredient, which was 342 milligrams of ibuprofen, was identical. While I'm sure the ACCC's chemical facts were accurate, their psychology seems to be wrong, writes Roy Sutherland. Promoting a drug as a cure for a narrowly defined condition, as Nurofen did, also increases placebo power. Everything the company was doing actually added to the efficacy of the product. Call it what you want. Deceit, salesmanship, placebo. But sometimes a little benign bullshit is good for everybody. When did you get honey in your tea yet?
No, I still have no honey in my tea. Days going downhill second by second, from the lack of honey to the lack of Black history knowledge, to you commenting about my biceps. It's off the rails today. I'm just biding my time until you say hit the button to stop. Mentally, I've checked out already. I'm sorry, were you talking to me? John's got the hood on. It's serious now. Oh, we got a real podcast now. John pulled the hood up.
There's this guy, Frank Benedetto. His key insight was that fighters are broke, but fans of fighting aren't. So instead of relying on his fighters to pay the bills, Frank began viewing them as a marketing expense. In exchange with working with them for free or almost free, his athletes would share videos of their training on social media and promote Frank as their coach. Because here's the thing, alpha types love fighting. Those same alpha types often work high-paying corporate jobs. So Frank developed a premium coaching service called Train Like a Fighter. And he sold it to rich guys who want to brag to their buddies that they train with the same guy as the dude they watch punch and kick and hug, choke, not hug, other people on pay-per-view TV. Sell to the whales, serve the minnows, and use the minnows to attract more whales. I get pushback whenever I talk about whales and minnows by people who want to build an accessible product or service. They want to help, but they're going to build it all wrong. Here's a thought experiment. Let's say that you want to donate toothbrushes to help improve dental hygiene in the developing world. The correct approach isn't to start a toothbrush company that sells to lower income societies. It's to make a lot of money, buy a lot of toothbrushes, and donate them. You don't need to make your money from the people you want to help. Within a year and a half, Frank scaled his whales and minnows business to $3 million a year and moved his family from New Jersey to Florida. Now, I'm not shitting on New Jersey, but Florida sounds like a nicer place to live. The New Jersey polyamorous jiu-jitsu. We're just going state by state, right?
You upset everyone now, John.
Yeah. Well, I got nothing against New Jersey. Okay, I do have one thing against New Jersey.
Here we go.
You have so many ridiculous one-way highway streets and forced turnarounds on the highway where you've got to drive like a mile out of your way.
Yes.
To just change directions and go on the highway. I don't know who the urban planner was, but he was drinking something in his tea, man.
Probably drinking my tea.
That's what I have against New Jersey.
It's stupid. There's so many places there's no left turn. You have to complete an entire exit just to turn left. It's ridiculous. I hate it.
I think they anticipated that more people were going to want to live in New Jersey when they planned the streets. So they're like, we really need this traffic flow to be really efficient.
Oh, man. The hugging MMA fighters from New Jersey are going to be after you, John. Buddy. Better stay away from the Northeast.
It's the poor man's New York. I don't know how many old hairy men in like white tank tops in a second floor walk up like tenement apartment, like yelling out to somebody across the street in an Irish bakery are listening to this podcast.
Oh, the racism is killing me today.
Is that racist?
I don't know. It's some ist. I don't know what the ist is that it is, but there's some ist in that ish. I can tell you that.
A Jew, a black guy, and a white woman hosting a podcast. Nobody's safe. Amber, you're not immune. You're guilty by association. So this next section is called the passive income fallacy. This is something I'm very passionate about. Okay. Roll up my sleeves. It's important to describe what you're doing physically on a podcast. Got my hood on. Drinking from my Tortuga mug that I bought on the beach from some dude. Okay. Passive income fallacy. Tortuga. Okay.
Did you develop like Tourette's or something while you were in Nicaragua?
Something's happened.
Tortuga. It's like Super Troopers. See if you can just throw in Tortuga every once in a while.
Oh, gosh.
In 1952, meow, the General Mills thought that their Betty...
I remember when we did that on the old show.
We did.
And it was
we had
pretty
a number
funny.
of episodes where we meowed the entire show.
It was pretty funny.
Yeah.
Oh, that's good times, man.
So in
I'm sorry,
1952, no, that's fine. We're cool. In 1952, because it's your month, we're cool. In 1952, General Mills, they thought that their Betty Crocker instant cake mix was going to be an instant hit. Now, for anybody who used it, right? All you needed to do was add water, stir, and bake. But what happened was that sales were really, really low, and the company couldn't figure out why. So I'm going to describe what happened, but before I do that, understand that this is 1952, and these are not my words, and so this is going to sound very, very sexist. But this is like actually the words that like people used back then, and I'm going from official sources. So, prelude to that.
Yikes.
So what happened was the company hired 2 psychologists who reported that the average American housewife felt guilty because the cake mix was too easy to use. Change the recipe, they suggested. Make it so housewives need to just add an egg. Against all marketing conventional wisdom, General Mills revised the product, instead making it less convenient. Reads an article in Psychology Today. Adding fresh eggs, writes Susan Marks, who wrote a book called Finding Betty Crocker, gave women a sense of creative contribution. Management consultant Robert Frisk later added that for many people, if success comes too easily, they can't handle it. I came across some tantalizing tweet about a week before I wrote this section, and it said, "Just woke up to more passive income." And it featured a screenshot of multiple overnight sales of a $27 ebook. Dude's living the dream, right? I'm not convinced. Because you'd have to sell 1,851 items for $27 to make $50,000 more this year, excluding taxes and fees. It would only take 21 customers paying you $200 a month to make that same $50 or $50K. What do you think is easier to find? 21 whales or 1,851 minnows? Todd Herman, who wrote a book called The Alter Ego Effect, like me, owns both a coaching business and a software as a service company. You like that book, Em? Yeah? I'll tell Todd. He's a good dude.
Yeah, it's one of my favorites, actually.
Oh, really? Oh, good.
Mm-hmm.
Good. I've got like 5 copies of him. Yeah, no, Todd's a good dude. Anyway, he posted this to Facebook. He said, SaaS founder, works 8 to 12 hours a day, makes $1,000 to $5,000 per month. Coach, works the same or less, makes $5,000 to $100,000 per month. Yet people call SaaS revenue passive and the coaching model unscalable. Passive income, the way it's promoted most often online, is a fallacy. Highly profitable cash flowing businesses are frowned upon. And the moment that somebody succeeds in one, they often switch to a riskier model where they're forced to work more hours for less money. Coaching is an example of a business that kicks off a lot of cash. When it's done right, margins are high and expenses are low. It's wonderful. But also they're active businesses. Too often, successful coaches get tempted by opportunities promising additional revenue streams, like low-cost membership platforms, ebooks, or apps. The thought process is that active businesses will never make you rich, which is just simply not true. What's actually happening is a combination of boredom from the day-to-day mundanity and an overemphasis on addictive sales notifications for small and often insignificant amounts of money. I have an investment advisor. He's purchased stock on my behalf in MasterCard, McDonald's, and NVIDIA, amongst many others. On the same night that dude on Twitter was selling $27 ebooks, people also used credit cards, bought Happy Meals, and purchased microprocessors. Intuitively, I know that my money is working for me overnight. Whenever I check my investment accounts, it's easy to see the numbers go up far more than $27 at a time. But I don't check daily, and I don't get notifications. And there's nothing for me to do, which is kind of the point, but it's also the crux of the problem. Like baking a Betty Crocker cake, true passive income is so easy that it feels like cheating. And that's why people tend to fall prey to the passive income fallacy online, often trading a good business model for a bad one. In many cases, we should trade our time for money. But our time should cost a lot. If we found work that's meaningful and fulfilling to us, we should do that work. I'll talk to you about cash for life. So, 2 Christmases ago, I won $4 on my Cash for Life lottery ticket. Now, after a very sustained gloating period, I wondered, what does cash for life really mean? And so as it turns out, there's actually 2 options, okay? Option number 1 is you get $1,000 a week for the rest of your life, which is cash for life. Option number 2 is you could actually take a $1.3 million one-time payout, which is, call it cash up front. So which would you take, right? Which is a better option? So when I wrote this, I was 37 years old. Let's assume that I'll live another 50 years. If I choose cash for life, I'd get 2,600 payments of $1,000, which is a total of $2.6 million. So that's double the one-time payment. Okay, what if I took the cash up front? $1.3 million invested at a 5% annual interest rate becomes $14.9 million in 50 years, which is 5.7 times more than cash for life. So cash up front is way better than cash over time. But what about one more scenario? What about more cash but delayed? So let's say that I bust my butt working for free by playing the influencer game, or I'm building a startup and it actually works. Okay? 20 years from now, I get a payout of $2.6 million. Now, one thing that people don't understand with startups is that even if you see like they sell for $10 million or something, the person who owns it actually often gets a very small fraction of that, and then after taxes, even a smaller fraction of that. So even if you see like an 8-figure payout, oftentimes the person's only getting like a few million. Not always, but a $2.6 million payout for a startup is actually much more common than getting way more than that, even if the total sale of the company is way more. Doesn't matter. If I took that 2.6 million, because this is just an example, and I invested it at that same 5% annual interest rate for 30 years, so the end date of all the examples is the same, I'd have 11.24 million, which is still $3.6 million less than taking considerably less cash up front with far less risk. Okay. Admittedly, I took some liberties with those numbers. Who knows when and how big a future payout might be if you play the startup influencer lottery and win. Most startups fail, and most influencers crash and burn, but some do win big, way, way, way bigger than $2.6 million. Also, 5% compounding year over year doesn't happen. It'll vary. There's luck involved. The rate of return of the market when we start investing impacts lifetime returns measurably. So like even a 5% is the average over time. A lower rate of return earlier on makes a big impact, vice versa. Right? But all of this is kind of the point. The future is uncertain. Cash up front isn't necessarily the best way to optimize wealth. It's simply the path with the most reliable odds of achieving good enough success. I believe that at a certain point, more money has diminishing returns. If you already have 37 plates of pasta, a 38th won't make a difference. Nobody wins when rich people play comparison games with one another. Or maybe you do have aspirations to get absolutely positively stinking rich, which is cool. And it's not for me, but I get that not everybody is like me. There's different games to play, and every one of them has different rules, risks, time horizons, and trade-offs. So long as you're okay with the rules of the game you've decided to play, I'm in your corner. Nobody's wrong. Nobody's crazy. All of what we talk about on this podcast, all of what I talk about in the book is simple, but it's not easy. You got to fix what's inside of your fence first. You got to play your own game. You got to remain optimistically ignorant. You got to become famous to the family. You need to stop endlessly searching for the capital B best way and instead find your lowercase ge good enough. You got to put your monkey first. You got to do the thing. The next time that you hear an inspirational story about somebody who overcame against all odds, remember that the best lives make for the worst stories. It shouldn't be hard. And we shouldn't be surprised when it works. There's no formulaic steps to success, though. We're all making it up as we go, and you can too. All of this is hard. Becoming the obvious choice is simple. It's not easy. Our brains evolved to collect nuts in a forest, not process a 24/7 information onslaught. It's impossible to keep up. The modern world's hell-bent on convincing us that there's a better way, and perhaps that is, but to that I ask, if my way is good enough, does a better way matter? Like, what are we doing here? And why? To live a better life, right? To show up more for the people we care for. To do good work but not live to work. To go to bed at night tired, not exhausted, ready for sleep, but excited to get up and do it again. It was 5 a.m., and I was working in an empty lobby of a hotel in the Dominican Republic. We surprised my sister for her 40th birthday. And this guy stumbled past. Vodka, maybe some rum, I don't know. He looked at me and he said, "That's sad, dude, you're on vacation." And all that I could think about in that moment was that I never wanted to once again live a life where I had to go on vacation to escape. "Donde puedo conseguir un café con azúcar, por favor?" I asked the lobby attendant in my caveman Spanish where I could get a coffee. And he tells me that I'm too early and will have to wait 30 minutes. I set out when I set out to write this book to share a few lessons about success that helped me find my way after I lost it. That took me from lost and aimless to being so excited for my work that I was too fucking early for coffee. And I hope that what we're sharing and we'll continue to share in this podcast, and when the book's ready for pre-order in April, and and you have a chance to read it next year, I hope that those lessons are going to help you too. There's a conclusion for the book, but I'm not going to read it because it doesn't really make sense for the podcast. But yeah, whales and minnows, man. It's everything.
Love it.
It's everything.
There's the cadence where you're talking about like going to bed tired but not exhausted, that whole section. I really like that. That felt good.
Thank you. There's got to be like something I've spoken to my editor and my agent at length is, yeah, this is a business book, but great business books are always about more than business. Mm-hmm. They're always mask self-development, personal development books. Like there's always got to be a deeper reason why, and you get that and you feel that as you're kind of reading through. I think especially in these days where if you want to learn how to do something, it's not hard to learn how to do something. You're not going to buy a book for that. There's got to be some kind of deeper emotional connection. It's got to help you kind of overcome or see things differently or become a different person as a result of reading it. And my hope is that that'll come through. My hope is that a lot of the journey that I have kind of been on, like I can read you a little bit. I'm not done the intro yet, but I can read you a little bit of the intro. I don't know. Do you want to hear like the beginning of the intro?
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Actually, that'll be fun. This is very much unedited and raw, so I don't know how good it is, but so what's interesting is that I didn't read you the final line of the book because it doesn't really make sense in context of the podcast, but I actually have known the first line and the final line of the book for about a year. What I had to figure out was how to get from one to the next. It was my buddy Mike asked me, I don't know, I was having like a breakdown. Mike, who wrote like Comfort Crisis and Scarcity Brain and stuff, great books. I was having a breakdown. I was confiding in him a month or so ago. And I don't remember why, but I just said to him, like, no, I have all the words. They're just not in the right order. like the problem is not the words. I just got to figure out what order they go in. Anyway, so I've known. So as I read this to you, I've known that this was going to be the first line of the book. And Amber, you weren't here for this episode, but when I talked about like lessons in the book, this first line, I pull lines from particularly fiction that I really love and figure out how they can apply nonfiction. Because I think that great fiction just has a way of communicating truths about the world that nonfiction just doesn't. Like you have to tell this in stories. So I'm trying to pull from it. So this is the first line of the book Elantris by Brandon Sanderson, who's a sci-fi author that I've read a bunch of, was Elantris was great once. And what I love about first lines in books is they're short, they're powerful, they say a lot with a few words, and you have to read the next line. Like you can't not read the next line. So anyway, here goes. Oh shit, I'm nervous. All right, here goes. Business was great once. One moment I was riding high, admired for what I'd built. The next moment I was crying at my kitchen table, telling my general manager about a severance package on a video chat. The story starts when I produced the first ever course for online fitness training. We owned the market from 2013 to 2020. $100,000 sales days were normal. Our profitability allowed us to invest over $1 million a year into free content. At its peak, my blog welcomed 4 million visitors a year. Things were good. Then in March of 2020, the COVID-19 pandemic shut down the world. While others suffered, my business soared. Overnight, and for reasons outside of their control, every personal trainer needed to work online. It's super freaking weird to write this, but the onset of the pandemic was basically a 4-leaf clover shoved up the proverbial butt of my business. But as it turned out, a shallow view of reality had been thrust in front of my face. Thinking that we had it all figured out, we stopped everything that had made us successful. We hired costly brand consultants who taught us how to speak and data analytics experts who taught us how to convert. Drowning in reports, spreadsheets, and project briefs, I lost my way. When you lose yourself, you forget why you're doing what you're doing. You show up and you put in the work, but when you get home, you wonder what you've accomplished. Expenses exploded. Sales flatlined. Business wasn't fun anymore. We were working so hard and spending so much money, and none of it was making a difference. None of that mattered, though, because on July 23rd, 2021, I came home to find my son playing by himself. "Mummy's sad," he said. I walked upstairs to the bedroom. Allison was crying. "I have cancer," she said. We fell into one another's arms.
Damn good first passage. I would have to read the next thing. That's awesome, John.
My business needed me. My family needed me. I didn't know what to do. All that I knew was that I needed space. So in September of 2021, I fired my entire team. By this time, in addition to generating tens of millions of dollars in my own business, we had directly helped over 65,000 individuals build and grow their own thing through our programs and coaching. This helped me develop and refine in very practical and specific terms what makes a person successful. In revisiting these insights, I began to realize that my own business did not need to be such a struggle. There's a question every interviewer asks. It goes, knowing now what you know, what would you do differently if you were to start again? My answer is what you're about to read in this book. Cancer is unfair. I don't wish it on anybody. It does, however, have a habit of calling you out on your shit. Allison's diagnosis forced a fresh start. After we knew that she was going to be okay, it was time to build back up. The secret I'd learned was to build my foundation on principles that worked before the internet existed. It was a de-evolution of sorts, back to a simpler time, a way to do less but better, to look at modern technology as an amplifier, not igniter, as fuel, not the fire. And then it keeps going.
That's good stuff, brother.
Love it.
Thanks, man.
You got me right in the feels.
Yeah.
Right? Exactly.
Yeah, right in the feels. Man, that's good.
All right. Thanks for listening.